So we're all here. We are recording our first podcast for Old Man Boxing, the Old Man Boxing Society, let's call it by its proper name. And really the first discussion is just about pathways into boxing and how we all sort of found our way into boxing through various ways and means. I think we've all got different stories, different backgrounds, different ages, and different experiences, and probably, you know, our entry into boxing is not necessarily the norm, not like in the traditional sense, but I think it's a good opportunity just to chat about the various avenues that we've taken, because the whole boxing environment and landscape's changed so dramatically in the last 15 years. And with it, opportunities have opened up, but probably there's a lot of people who don't really, aren't really aware of what those opportunities are and how people can to get into boxing, so to speak, or do boxing, as I heard somebody say it once. So I think what we'll do is we'll just have a chat about it, about our stories, about how we made our way into this wonderful, wonderful, violent sport. What we get out of it, benefit out of it, and things like the obstacles we've faced along the way, and some of the challenges we've had along the way, which we've all had, undoubtedly. So I am really going to then point, not the camera, but the spotlight is going to go on our oldest member. Hope you don't mind me saying this, Rob, but only just.
Only just.
You scraped in under that elderly banner, don't worry. I mean, this is really the elderly, the elderly bench. So Rob is, I'll just give you a bit of background. Rob's just has a very strong military background, and boxing's been in his blood. But I'm gonna ask you, Rob, how and why on earth did you enter this wonderful, crazy world of boxing? How did you do it?
It seems like a lifetime away, because it was a lifetime away, for most people, that were probably watching this podcast or listening to it. 1980.
Cool.
1980, young boy, growing up in a council estate environment, single parent household, was overweight. And growing up in the early 80s was quite brutal, if I'm honest. Certainly if you're from a single parent family, sort of bullying, harassment at school, which would be unacceptable in today's genre at school, and really did end up sort of being victim of bullying at that age, and I didn't have anyone to kind of influence me or inspire me like you would do with a father figure, and there was a local boxer at the time, a chap called Andy Till, who went on to be a British champion, and went and was ended up a world junior welterweight champion, and some people may recognise him recently from the film Snatch. He plays the boxer in Snatch, the heavyweight that gets knocked out. I used to watch him train road running, and it was back in the days when you sort of typical sort of Rocky faction, grey tracksuit and big work boots. Used to be the sort of trend. And it was only he was just the guy I used to see out road running, and I remember sort of how. I got to speak to him. He sort of dragged me along to a local community centre back then, which was a place called Windmill Lane, and it had a very basic boxing gym, sort of a ring, a few punch bags, etc., and kind of guided me to sort of into a bit of bag work, and not really sort of into any sparring, and sort of from that I went from an overweight kid that sort of, with pretty much no direction to a little bit of sort of direction from a sporting aspect. And it kind of coincided with the same time that I'd applied to join the army. And obviously part of the military process, obviously you have to do a fitness test. Yeah. So a year of his sort of guidance and guidance at this local sort of boxing club kind of helped me in, pass the army fitness test. Just about. It was just about, and ended up obviously joining the army at 16 years old. The progression then, obviously, the military has changed significantly since then. But again, obviously, the military are absolutely fantastic in taking a raw product and turning that raw product into something. And of course, obviously, if you've got, if you highlighted that you've potentially got a sort of capability. And bearing in mind, we are talking the military, so there is an element of violence involved and being able to cope with violence. It looked like I had an attribute towards boxing, and I ended up boxing as a junior soldier, and had in the year's junior training had about 8 or 9 bouts as a junior soldier. Actually, and those that know how I box now will probably will probably laugh, because I actually used to move and slip and avoid being punched.
You still move and slip. You still move and slip.
I would say I could potentially box back then, and then of course that progression. Once you finish your junior army training, you then go to a battalion, and your regiment. And of course, once you get, boxing's a massive thing in the army.
Yeah,
it's huge. It's almost one of the lifeblood sports in the military. And if you're in the boxing team, huge amount of kudos from it. But it's also a huge amount of support.
Yeah.
And it got to battalion, and they have what they call intercompany. So within, I won't go into the regiment background, but obviously you have different companies within the battalion. And of course, there's always a rivalry. So you sort of have A company versus B company versus C company. And they run this annual boxing competition. I always remember I turned up as a young, fresh-faced 17-year-old in Ireland, and fought one guy and beat him, and sort of got quite, this is easy. And then fought the next guy who back then was, a real legend, sort of like the Nigel Benn type character. Yeah. This was a chap called Gary Anglin. And I always remember standing in, in the back of the dressing room, all nice and sort of leery. Who's this Gary Anglin? Yeah, he's gonna stop him. And this guy went, that's me. And I turned around, and there was this muscular, grown man. I lasted 2 rounds, but which was the thing. And the progression then went on, obviously, that it was recognised that I had an ability to box. Yeah. Then sort of the following year entered the same competition and won the competition. So I ended up as what they call, Kirk's champion. As a result of that, ended up in the battalion boxing team, which was massive privilege, with some real quality boxers, and represented the battalion, obviously, against the greater army family, as it were. Awesome experience, probably the fittest that I've ever been in my life. The coach then, is an amazing fella, that is now a professor of boxing.
I was going to ask about the coaching from the army perspective, because my father was in the Remy, he joined the boxing club, in the Remy. His excuse was, I didn't want to volunteer for anything else. I thought this is just a way to keep fit, and realised how hard it was. But he actually, he said from a coaching perspective, weren't really coached that much from his side. So I suppose maybe it's the luck of the draw, really, I suppose, in your...
Yeah, I think it's increased massively. I think, when you look, I was fortunate enough to go to Aldershot, which is sort of the home of British Army boxing. Yeah. And the year that I went to see it was the army tournament, Nigel Benn was boxing.
Yes,
so that kind of Nigel was sort of known to myself and some of my other sort of colleagues in the army then, because Nigel used to be in the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, before obviously he left and got into obviously to professional boxing. But Nigel actually got beat at that competition.
Oh, did he?
There was this guy that actually sort of won. Continued on, so there are some amazing boxers in the military.
Yeah,
that have chosen a military career over a boxing career. So that's
interesting. I mean, it's almost an amateur setup in a military environment, so to speak, isn't it? Because you're doing inter battalion or inter regiment sort of bouts and tournaments, etc.
I mean, it's amazing in the military because sort of, you know, 1 minute you're in a barrack room with obviously all of the discipline and the barrack room standards and protocols that are going on, and having to be sort of in uniform and polished boots, etc., and marching everywhere, to suddenly being given a tracksuit, moving in separate accommodation, getting the very best of food, strutting around the military base like you're sort of like you're something special.
You're the prince, look at me.
And training all day long, you know, literally sort of, you know, you'd be up in the morning doing your road work, you know, you come back, you know, sort of rest, you know, then you'd be doing technical, then you'd be sparring. So almost exactly like a professional boxer.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic, you know, as a young man, it was absolutely fantastic. And I say it probably, without doubt, the fittest I've ever been in my life, you know, and I think so, and the most disciplined as well, because sort of, and a real sort of accolade. And
I think you hit a nail on the head there. The word discipline probably will come out an awful lot with people's stories as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing like boxing, is there? I mean, obviously, of course, you've got other pugilistic arts. I'm
glad you used the word. You've got pugilism in. Well done, Ralph. You're gonna win that award.
They're all involve being hurt, and I think obviously, you know, this is a game, isn't it? That sort of like sport, not a game. It's a sport that. Unlike lots of other sports, the consequence of you not applying yourself will be that you will inevitably potentially get hurt. Yeah. You know, depending on the hurt level, but you're certainly, it's, you know, getting punched in the face is not nice. You know, it's as simple as that. And obviously, if you're not very good and you get punched in the face repeatedly, it's going to hurt even more. But yeah, and I left the military. You know, came into Civvy Street and sort of boxed a little bit more at a place called sort of Northolt Boxing Club in West London, and really because of my career as then moving into the sort of sector that I moved into, boxing kind of became a no-go, because obviously the amount of training that you should do if you're going to do it at a good level, and then, you know, my son was born, and sort of I think sort of, you know, having a newborn child, suddenly your focus becomes sort of, you know, totally towards your
priorities
family.
Change, don't they? And perspective changes.
And I think, as you all know, I'm sort of kind of a stop or go kind of speed. You know, I sort of either stop and not doing anything, or I do it
100 miles an hour.
All in.
Or try and do it 100 mile an hour, you know, depending on my age. I think, you know, for me, kind of always kept, you know, always had a love of the sport, you know, and sort of obviously, you know, watched it on telly and went to, you know, wherever I could go to events, you know, certainly go to events, you know, used to follow Nigel Benn, obviously on his, you know, obviously when he had, you know, his shows, etc. And kind of had a void space of over, you know, certainly over, God, must be 15 years. And it's bizarre, really, how sort of it came back into the sport, because I was
going to ask you about this, actually, because there is that gap, isn't there? Then you suddenly, the environment changes quite drastically.
Yeah, it's just a huge, because obviously, you know, other interests, family interests, and of course, obviously working away in other countries, etc. You know, sort of just not the ability to sort of be involved, and perhaps not the mindset to be involved as well. And then, obviously, going back now, so we are looking at sort of 2015. You know, I happened to be at a shopping centre in Bournemouth, and bizarre, really. You know, sort of you know, parked my car, gone shopping, came back via a different route, and see this sort of obviously homeless person that obviously in a sleeping bag. And obviously in the military we call them green maggots, because they're green and you look like a maggot. But this you know, sort of straight away my attention was like, oh, it's a military sleeping bag, you know, sort of, you know, and there are lots of surplus, etc. But the state of it really was the thing that sort of drew my attention, because it really was sort of in a poor state. You know, sort of I won't go into the finer detail, but it, it just wasn't nice. And I obviously went across, and I thought, Christ, it was potentially someone could be dead here, and tapped it with my boot, and sort of tried to stir some sort of response out of the individual that was in the sleeping bag. And fortunately, obviously, like some people, obviously, that are homeless and sort of do fall into perhaps sort of support of alcohol and other substances, was kind of sort of semi-compass mentis, but not. Anyway, this chap sort of rolled out of this opening of the sleeping bag and was, dishevelled and almost looked akin to, again, showing my age, Cat Weasel, sort of.
Yeah, I remember that. Let's move on.
Beard, sort of beard, sort of dirt, obviously not in the best condition. And I actually recognised him as one of the lads that had actually been in my regiment.
Oh, really?
So, over 2 decades ago. So looking at this guy, I'm thinking, Christ, how on earth have you got
into that state?
In this state?
Yeah.
And I won't go into the story, but obviously, there are sort of lots of horrendous stories for military guys and homeless people in general. That obviously all have that point, that tipping point. And for me, it's sort of, my immediate reaction was like, okay, let's go to the cash point and let's get some money and try and sort of help. But then suddenly realising that and what I know now about, obviously, it's not a problem that's just fixed with money. Yeah. And I rung another ex-army colleague of mine, and he said there's a charity that deals with these guys, but and there's lots of charities, but the problem with lots of charities is there's lots of red tape. Yeah, of course. And this particular charity, and I support them to this day. They offer what they call an immediate wrap-round of care service. So basically, if they can identify that there is a genuine veteran that is homeless or into that situation, then they respond within hours to literally sort of try and get that veteran off the streets, get him into accommodation, try and get sort of get to the root of why he's homeless. Yeah. But more importantly, then start to put the support system in place. And arrange that, with a phone call. And obviously, this chap obviously then ended up being supported and into basically into a position of recovery. Yeah. So I was just blown away because obviously at that time there wasn't the Armed Forces Covenant and there's not lots of actions towards what they've got the veterans now, and it's quite bizarre really, because I sort of came back to Reading after being shopping, and a guy that used to, I'd say, works alongside, there's a chap called Rich Loveday that runs Tank Promotions that we all know runs Tank. We know him well, yeah. Phenomenal guy. Sort of. He said, "Well, why don't you raise some money?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'd love to do that." And he said, "Well," I said, "Why don't you box on my show?" And I sort of stood there and I'm like, "Do you know what? Yeah, let's do it." Yeah. And this, and I say, this is 10 years ago now. Yeah. It's great. I remember your. I think I remember your. And for me, this is where the sort of the benefit of the society really, really resonates for me, because obviously at that I went, yeah, great. I was like, I like a bit of boxing, a bit of charity boxing. So straight away, being out the sport for, excuse me, for such a time, started Googling, where can I go and train? And, and how can I train? And sort of then suddenly, like anything, it's like training for over 40s, because, just thinking, I must admit it was quite bizarre really, sort of, I can train myself, Day one, iPod, rocky music, out, thought I'd go and do some road work. Oh, stop. Got about half mile down the road, the knees were like screaming. Sort of not even, I mean, breathing like an old tractor, but sort of not even broke a sweat, and sort of, oh God, this is this is this what have I done? You know, this is going to be hard work. So then I thought, actually, I'll try some local boxing clubs. And I won't name them, but obviously went to one boxing club, and literally you thought I was the Antichrist that had walked into the gym.
I think, do you know what? I mean, and we'll probably come around and discuss this a bit later, but I think that experience is probably a shared experience. And the irony is, you come from a very, very rich boxing background, and yet still, even because of your age, you're deemed, taboo.
I mean, it was literally. I mean, as I walked through the door, and it was almost like sort of like everything stopped to sort of look at who's this sort of middle-aged sort of sort of middle-aged spread guy coming in like thing, and sort of looking around, and you're looking, you've got elite there's professional boxers there, sort of certainly elite amateurs. I thought, oh God, this is intimidating, and sort of thing, and to be honest, felt very, very uneasy, and I was made to feel unwelcome just by asking a few simple questions. So I thought, do you know what? Let's chalk that one off. Then went to another gym. It was predominantly all amateurs, and was told simple. No, we're an amateur boxing club. We don't do white collar, simple as that. And sort of we don't train anyone associated to white collar. So I was like, oh God, this is going to be a bit harder than what I thought it would be. Fortunately, then sort of someone recommended, and I also because it's where it started for me, Bournemouth Boxing Club, which was a little small boxing club above a place called TNT, which was a weights gym, and I went down there and sort of met a chap called Sam Fleetwood, who was really good coach, from an ABA point, and he said, look, I'll help you out, and also there was a chap that was running the ABAs there, phenomenal coach. I think we all know Tommy Johnson was there, and obviously Tommy is very much a purist, and certainly was a purist back then. That he was totally focused on ABAs and amateurs, but Sam took me under his wing, and we kind of got to a standard. Had the I think it was called the Reading Rumble. It was called the Reading Tank Price, the Reading Rumble. Fought the guy and knocked him out in the first round. I think which was quite. I thought, hey, this is
got the taste again for
this it. This is good, and raised a phenomenal amount of money, and really got a buzz for it. And I think the whole sort of aspect of it. And I thought, do you know what? Probably do this again. Yeah. But then I think for me, I'd met some new people that were sort of certainly favoured towards what I call the unlicensed scene. So obviously not ABA, certainly not professional, but obviously that huge void there, and continued to train at Bournemouth, and met Max Micklejohn and the team there, and sort of obviously trained there, did another fight, and obviously enjoyed that. And unfortunately, Bournemouth, sadly like a lot of boxing clubs now, obviously went by the way because of finances and everything else. So I think it's where I met you. I started training at Core Gym, Mark Bamfield's gym, right, over in
Woodley, isn't it?
Over in Woodley, and I can remember, training with Max, because Max took me on, and we were doing sort of concerted one-to-one training, and I can remember sort of walking into there, and the first time I saw you were in the ring with a reaction ball.
Yeah, my favourite little toy at the time, that was.
And I think you were in there for about 25 minutes, I think, and I thought, wow, that bloke's got some discipline, because you were there on your own.
Yeah.
You literally there. You said hello, obviously, courteously, obviously his thing, but you were there, and I thought, wow, it's sort of admirable. And obviously then we continued training through that point, and then unfortunately sort of the Bournemouth and the associated sort of side of Bournemouth kind of moved aside really, and sort of kind of diminished. And I think then for for me, obviously, coming down to Scales Lane, to where the society had now you'd now taken host.
Yeah.
I think the first session I came down, I walked in and thought, number one, first thing that sort of resonates with me was that there was no sort of no ego, because there was some very, very good unlicensed lads there, and sort of, I think, Alex Kamara for one, I think sort of, it was just a real amicable, sort of friendly environment. But I think it was a Saturday morning session, and there must have been about 30 people in there. And I went, Christ, I've gone back 3 decades into the military, because it was like a military session. I mean, literally, you could see people sort of nearly being sick. In fact, you could see people being sick outside. You could see people, obviously, and I think what struck me was the variation, because you had 17-year-olds, and until I walked in, you had sort of over 40-year-olds. But everyone was working at their levels.
Yeah.
And I think, again, your method and Hess's method and the coach's method, that was sort of, is do your best to your capabilities. And for me, I think that sort of was pretty awesome, because sort of the encouragement there from the rest of the members there, and the society members, was encouraging people to be the best they can be, within their capabilities. So not forcing people to go over. So not looking at people that actually, you can't do 50 press ups straight off. So, you're dismissed. So, okay, you've done 20, brilliant. And the encouragement that comes from that,
I think and I think it's interesting that you felt we were accommodating, put it that way, because I know that this is you've mentioned the amateur boxing clubs, they can be very, very elitist to a certain degree, and you got to remember, these guys are training people to perform at the highest level, and invariably that's where their focus is. But on the same token, there's a whole sort of group of people that want to enter this lovely sport, and they're missed opportunities for the person trying to enter it, and the associated clubs. And I think you made a good point there. There's clubs go by the wayside now, because what is now England boxing, used to be obviously the amateur, the ABA stuff. They go by the wayside because they are being slightly elitist. If to be a sustainable financial model for any organisation, you need to really open up and be very diverse with your the people you're sort of bringing in, and as soon as you start putting restrictions, you restrict the ability to sustain yourself financially. It's a financial model that, you're an accountant, you probably look at that as a financial model and go, it just doesn't work. Why you're targeting kids under 20 years old who aren't exactly renowned for their expendable income, and how are you gonna sustain that model? And it's sustained a lot through charity donations, from government grants, etc. And I think it's interesting that it's all. Do you know what, Rob? It's I know this might sound a little cheesy. It's almost like you've gone on this lovely long journey. You've kind of found a home, I mean, at our age, it could be classified as a retirement home, maybe, but but you found a real home and a sort of a. And I think I'm going to speak on Rob's behalf here, is that Rob didn't only just find a home and train here. Rob then organises everything from merchandise to just so many things, equipment he'll bring in that he'll donate to the club, donate to time, and it's brilliant that we have that sort of person. And this is what happens: is we benefit for characters like Rob to come in with his experience, and is just, I think, that energy you bring, like I said, there's a massive energy when you come in, and it's, Rob's in and everybody's, it's, hi Rob, how are we doing? It's even when he's not training, he comes, chatting with people, etc. And I think that's where it goes beyond boxing. I know that sounds a little bit maybe cliched, but it becomes as you mentioned, it's a society, and it's somewhere you kind of go and you miss when you're not there, and you go and you have a chat with people, and we talk. I mean, Di, I'm going to come to you in a minute, because obviously the wonderful world of chatting, and you know that. But I think that is, and the other last thing, and I just want to touch on this, Rob, is it's interesting. You started talking about somebody who's homeless there, and you saw that, and your pathway into boxing. A lot of people's pathway is a form of redemption. They maybe have addictions, they maybe are struggling with life, and this is their chance to sort of redeem themselves, set themselves. And yours is kind of flipping it. Yours is actually seeing other people and trying to help them on their pathway through. See what I mean? It's not really a personal. You know, you're not going to say to me, yeah, I've demons and I had alcohol, drugs, or any addictions like that, and boxing helped me through it. It's kind of flipping it over and going, I saw person A, B, and C in struggling, and therefore I thought I'll take the initiative and I'm going to do something positive to do that. It's quite an interesting story from that perspective, because I think it sums you up. It's not about you, it's about the other people, and that's. Listen, I've been around boxing for quite a long time, and I know boxers can be the most selfish. You know what's in the world, genuinely very self-obsessed. Kind of have to be an elite boxer or of any standard. So I think it's interesting that your pathway is just embraced everyone else.
Yeah, but I think, do you know what? You mentioned it. You know, you mentioned the word addiction. I think for me, certainly the motivation to get re-involved with boxing was obviously to help other people, and then I think, you know, there comes a point, obviously, where, you know, you tap into, you know, your friends and colleagues' generosity through getting punched in the face and raising money. And we've raised a phenomenal amount of money, and we help loads of chats. But I think the thing that really resonates for me is, and it's the word society and family, because what you've built, you know, at Old Man is unique. Because, you know, and I use recent examples for me, obviously, where multiple injuries and obviously some quite sort of serious ones recently.
A bit's fallen off you, didn't you?
Yeah. The amount of support from people.
Yeah.
Messages, just simple message. How you doing, Clarky? You know, sort of like from various amounts of people. The amounts of advice from people like Stuart in relation to recovery, you know, and you look back at that, and I sort of look at that sort of support system as well. That obviously, when everything is going well, when you're in camp, you've got all these unique individuals of personal trainers, of nutritionists, that people are all more than willing to help support you. And it's not, well, write me a check. It's literally, you know, you're part of this society and you're getting this support in, and you're getting advice from different areas. And I think it's the same thing being when you sit back and you watch the sparring. Obviously, you know, it's you know, everyone can be a critique and everyone can be an expert, but you get this sort of friendly advice and you get this sort of pat on the back, you know, and at every level. Because obviously, you know, bearing in mind, you know, sort of you get that sort of that eclectic mix of levels in sparring, where you'll go in and it's sort of, you know, it's a very controlled touch spar, technical spar, to going in some days and you've got like sparring sessions that are like a competitive bout, you know, and probably better than some competitive bouts.
Yeah,
you look at some of the guys that have been there, and real wars. And I think again, it's down to levels, and it's whatever level you want to go to, which is your decision. Then you're helped to achieve that, and I think that's, you know, that's admirable. You know,
I think it's and we're gonna have a chat about this certainly with Di in a minute. Is we provide or create an environment that is to accommodate everyone's ambition and objectives throughout. You know, it's no point about being elitist in that sense. It's about, you know, person A, you want to get this out of it, and that changes along the way as well. I think so. So Di, one of our female members in the club, and much as we are Old Man Boxing, and suddenly I know that the gym owner Dan, when we first moved into those premises, said, "Don't you think you're calling it Old Man Boxing? You're just going to get old men." I said, "Yeah, it was a tongue in cheek originally." and me and Dan will talk about this a bit as well. It's a tongue-in-cheek thing that we had, where we were old men boxing out of Rob mentioning Woodley, and we kind of had that stuck. You know, we sort of said, we're going to go with this. It's good fun, and it creates a story. Actually, people ask about it, and you know, and we can understand. You know, are you restricting your the people coming in, etc. But so Diane, I'll put a bit of context. So Diane, you training in the ultra white collar charity one, was that right?
Yeah, November 22. Yeah.
Look at that.
That's
Remember? Yeah.
My first bout. Yeah.
Tell us more.
I just fell into it actually. So it was actually recommended by a good friend of mine who's a PT. So what happened is I got into my 30s and I could see my health was probably deteriorating, and your body just doesn't work in the same way as when you're in your 20s. So I decided to join the gym.
I think this sofa's all nodding our heads like that.
Decided to join the gym. I've got, as you mentioned earlier, I'm an accountant, so I've got quite a stressful job, should we say, long hours, and I'm naturally a workaholic, unfortunately. But so I put all the hours in, and the way I'd deal with the pressure or the stress historically was to eat through it. So it would be mainly sugar as well. So mainly chocolate, sweets, you name it, I'd go for it. And then I thought to myself, this can't continue.
Yeah.
I need to do something about it. Joined the gym, started going to the gym, but what I realised is I'd binge eat, and then I'd go and do a session in the gym. So it still wasn't really helping myself. Took on a few sessions with a PT friend of mine who did a bit of pad work with me and got me to do a bit of skipping, you know, some light boxing training.
Yeah.
And then he said to me, "You're quite good. Like you're a quick learner.
Yeah.
Maybe you should give this charity box a go." You know.
And you'd not had any interest in boxing per se previous?
No, not at all.
So you didn't want to go, maybe I'll do a charity walk or something like that? You thought, I'm going to go in the deep end.
I quite enjoyed the pad work. Everything
yeah.
I was doing with him, I was like, this is quite fun, actually.
Yeah.
And then he even did a bit of sparring with me. He's a lot bigger than me, but he obviously eased up on the power and stuff. And he was like, yeah, do you know what? I think you really enjoy it. If you go through the camp, go for it, try it out. And the main thing is it's all to beat cancer, right?
Yeah.
So it's all for charity, right? And I thought, okay, let me sign up. So I signed myself up. And by the time I'd signed myself up, I thought I was fit or at a level of fitness until I started the camp. And I was like, wow.
Because that's when we first trained you, wasn't
yes,
it?
it
That's
is,
right.
yeah.
Me and myself and Dan and Hess started training you, wasn't it?
So I was like, wow, this is a completely different level of fitness. I thought I was fit before, but now, by the end of that camp, I actually felt the fittest I've ever been in my life. And I really enjoyed that feeling. I felt quite lean as well. I felt in good shape, and actually the people that I had as potential opponents, there was literally only 4 of us women in all of the.
Yeah, it's a small take up, isn't it? Yeah.
So you could almost see who you were going to be up against. Yeah. Really. So I knew from early on in that camp who my opponent was going to be, and she did turn out to be my actual opponent in the fight. I later found out that so we drew, so which was I was
fight of the night, wasn't it? It was awarded fight of the night.
Yeah, fight of the night, exactly. I was quite happy with it. I had fun with it. It was brilliant. My opponent was a bit standoffish, but and I didn't quite understand why. And initially, when I first spoke to her, she said, "Oh yeah, it's my first time doing it as well." But after we'd finished the fight, we'd gone to get changed, and in the changing rooms, her friends came running up to me and were like, "Oh my God, you were amazing!" I said, "Thank you." And they said, "Oh, how long have you been boxing for?" And I said, "Literally, 8 weeks, or not long." And she said, "Oh, she's been doing it for 2 years."
Oh, really?
And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay,
Brilliant."
So I was like, oh, I got a draw up against someone that's been doing it for a couple of years. It's brilliant. And then I found out she was 10 years younger than me as well, which even boosted my confidence even more. I was like, oh, wow.
Here we go. I've got more to offer now.
She's a decade younger than me, and she's been doing it for 2 years. I've only been doing it for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And I got a draw against her. That's brilliant. And actually, we got a fight of the night, like you said. So that was really, really
And then
good.
you started, I mean, it was interesting because, put some context, so from our organisation, I suppose the contract, if you like, but we were training the ultra white collar participants, if you like. So we would do their coaching, their 8-week coaching, which was chaotic to say the least, because you'd have, how many was it, Dan? How many did we get through the door?
Biggest one was 78.
Yeah. Through the door, trying to train, between 70 and 80 people who've never boxed before, trying to get them into a shape to fight in front of 900 to 1,000 people. With coaches, we probably had about 4 coaches on the go at any one time, and there's no space, was there, etc. And it was difficult. I mean, we used to get frustrated with it because we wanted to go, right, these people are really potentially good. We can get them more training, etc. And I think that's when we started to open up sessions to say, look, if you want to do more, come along. Do extra. You can't do enough. You can't train hard enough. You can always do more. And I think yourself, and there was a few others that suddenly they're popping up in our regular sessions, and sort of then it snowballed from there with you, didn't it?
Yeah, well, actually, I took a year out.
You did?
I took a year out. The whole of 2023, I didn't do any boxing.
And then
so after that November 22 fight, I thought, okay, we'll just get back to normal training now.
I remember then you popped up and it's like,
yeah.
Oh,
and
I
then
die. Where have you been?
The whole 2023, I just thought about it. I kept thinking about it. It kept cropping in my mind. And then towards the end, I thought, you know what? My New Year's resolution, I'm going to get back into boxing.
Yeah.
Because that's the happiest, the fittest I've ever been.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Brilliant.
And actually, really good way of dealing with stress.
Yeah, you found that. You found that as well.
Amazing way, So
I think as well.
24,
well, this is the thing. It's interesting because you came along in a very, let's be honest with you, still a male orientated or very male dominant environment, with sort of no fears. And I think what we tried to do is just there's no segregation. There's no special. We don't make any special provisions for female boxers. You kind of go, let's all do it, let's all train. And I think that's benefited you and the other female boxers. We've got a number of female boxers. Denise is in there, Becky Mills we've had coming in, and Martha, and all sorts of people. And we want to expand on that. But I think your story is interesting because it literally was, I kind of do this. I've not really great love of boxing in the past, but you suddenly, it went, it sort of snowballed. I keep using that phrase, but it did. And to the point where you had another fight, is that correct?
Yes, I did, yeah, last year.
And you won that?
And I won that,
quite comfortably, I have to say.
Yes, 1 minute and 23 seconds into the fight.
Good.
TKO.
Do you want to be a bit more specific about that? And I think what happens in our society, and people start to look up to certain people and find there's almost like a mentorship that goes on within the group anyway. And what we tend to do as well is you kind of look towards people and as role models. And I think, so I'm not going to sort of fluff your feathers up too much here, but I think you're one of the people who, a lot of the female boxers look up to you as a role model because of your journey you've taken, and you've not been through an amateur route. You're north of 30. Am I being polite in saying that? No. There you go. And you've developed your fitness skill set. I mean, you take our core sessions at the end of every session now, and you've mentored the likes of Denise, who joined, and Denise won't sort of, she won't hate me for saying this, but her coordination was struggling to understand which was her left and right at one point, to now being absolutely, progressed to such a degree. And I think that's testimony to someone like yourself, because myself and Hess have never been a female. We've never been a female boxer. We've relating to, or trying to be, relate to certain pressures that female boxers come under. We can coach you, but I think sometimes there's that within the group, there's people that you look up to, and you can, you kind of follow and support along the way, and I think it helps. And it's growing in that sense, and not only women. There's young men who are looking up to you, and training with you, and even doing technical sparring with you, and really finding that you are streets and levels above them, and they understand what they need to get to.
Yeah, it's quite a respectful environment, to be fair. Old man boxing. So. Yeah. So during 2023, when I did take that time out, I did try and visit other boxing gyms.
Yeah.
Mainly because the STM or Old Man Boxing, where it is now, it's on the other side of Reading.
Yeah.
So I thought, let me have a look at what's around me, and I did try out the Whitley Amateur Boxing Club. Lovely guys that run it. And I get on with them.
Nathan,
but yeah,
brilliant coach. Yeah,
but just the environment's completely different. It doesn't make you feel welcome as a woman.
Yeah, and I think it's getting better. There's certainly there are clubs in and around the country, certainly where they're more accommodating with female boxers, and ourselves. Our sort of England boxing arm in Scales Lane Boxing Club. We've got female boxers, a number of female boxers coming in, and obviously you've actually sparred with a couple of them as well. I think it is getting better. The landscape's changing, but I know what you mean. Is that doors suddenly close because age, sometimes sex, it's the gender aspect comes into it.
But most, especially amateur clubs, they're not play boxing clubs, are they? It's for someone or players for someone to start their journey, and they want to push people to fight and stuff. So they are completely different to what we do.
100%.
Because they are, that is like a top level, isn't it? If you're in them sort of them amateur clubs, really you're going for that route to the top to fight in the amateur.
Amateur clubs have
that, but there's also
and that's where they're
being treated like a bit of a China doll, So some of the guys, we only did body sparring in the Whitley Boxing Club. That's mainly body sparring. And whenever we did body sparring, I found that I either had a guy that I was paired up with that just wanted to beat the crap out of me, or one that just didn't want to touch me at all. He was scared to punch me, almost because he thought that I was going to break.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's sometimes quite an alien experience for having female boxers in a male orientation that really struggle to understand how to operate and train around women. It really do, and it's just the environment that sometimes amateur boxing has bred, if you like, and it's, like I say, has been very male orientated and dominated in the past. It is getting infinitely better. You can see the shows that are being put on, where boxers are coming through, and headlining shows, which is fantastic. But I just remember that first. Then when you came back, it's Di's back again. It's back. Yeah, it's good.
So you were the reason I came back, actually, Graham. Yeah, honestly, yeah. You were the reason.
You're my favourite.
I just think your coaching style it fits with a lot of learning styles as well, yes.
I think you coach as well with the way I find it, and I'm going to speak to Hess about this in a minute, and Stu, because we are all, and so on this couch, I mean, 4 of us are England boxing coaches, and we've gone through our training, but we all kind of coach to a different, slightly different approach to a certain degree. But the one thing is, in my mind, is I want to coach how I'd like to be coached, and if somebody is very accommodating when I walk through the door, welcomes me, talks about things, what the sessions are going to be, etc., and explains things correctly, fully, and and encourages so that I will come back the next day. I mean, I'm you make your sessions hard. I know, Rob, you made the point that it's like sometimes the Saturday sessions are in the military, and you make the sessions hard, and we jokingly call Hess Sergeant Major because they're brutal. But I think coaching styles is if you can make those as engaging and as possible, so people get as much out of it and understand it, they keep coming back. And if you get them through the door the first time, the best thing from my perspective, and it's probably is the same as Stuart, you've been training people since day jot, is understand, getting people keep coming back because they're encouraged and they enjoy it and they're engaged with it, etc. as well. I mean, it's interesting with Hess's story because yours has been quite a meteoric rise, really, because when is it you started with us?
Right from the beginning at Scowers Lane at STMA. So, because I'd never boxed before at all until I'd come there, never at all. And I used to work with Dan, who owns.
Not this Dan.
Yeah, not this Dan.
Dan
Dan
Eden. My gym, Dan.
Yeah. So I used to work with him 25 years ago, and I know it's 25 years ago. It was when Rio was born.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So my son who comes boxing. So I used to work with him, and we worked. He used to live in Tylehurst, and I was living in Tylehurst at the time. So we worked together, but he didn't drive, but I did. So we used to go to work together. So we were quite close for quite a while. For those 5, so for them 5 years, we literally saw each other 5 days a week. And we became quite close as friends. So then the changing point for me really was COVID. Yeah. So prior to COVID, I was working in an office. I was working in Aylesbury. So I would drive to there and come home. So I had a nice routine, drive to Aylesbury, work, finish from there, get back straight to the gym. So that was fine. Straight to the gym, do what in the gym. And,
your routine.
That was my routine. COVID then happened, working from home. I really struggled from working from home to then get changed to go to the gym. Yeah. Difficult. I really struggled with it.
It's just a disruption of your routine, I suppose.
Yeah, it was just, and I think it was just, you're in your home comforts, aren't you? You're at home.
Yeah.
So then the thought then of then leaving there, well, having to get changed and go to gym, it just didn't happen. As much as I was trying, it didn't happen. So Dan then had a open day at STMA, and I thought, let me go along and support him, because I hadn't seen him for a while as well. And then obviously I went on the opening day and bumped into Graham. Yeah. He introduced me to Graham and Dave Mills. Yeah. And we had a chat, and they said, we're going to start a boxing. I mean, I've always loved boxing, but never got into it. But I've always loved boxing, earliest memories of fights like Alan Minter and...
My favourite boxer,
Alan Minter versus Marvin Hagler. Yeah.
Not my favourite fight.
Marvin. He's a boxer.
Yeah, and that was one of the craziest things I've seen. So I would have had that. And I was like, I always wake up fairly early in the morning. When he said, we're going to start at 6 o'clock in the morning, I was like, that suits me, fine, boom. And I remember first morning, I remember you calling me and saying, right, we're going to start on Monday. I was like, okay, great. First morning, it was just me, you, and Dave.
Yeah, I think it was only the three of us at the time.
Yeah, and then by the weekend, I think, Dan, you came along at the weekend. So I think we had a few more by the weekend.
Two-man band.
And there was one morning it was just me. Yeah, there was one morning, Saturday morning was just me and you in them early days. But the bug was in right from the very first session of me, you and Dave. Yeah. It just set in. Yeah. And I was like, even though I was sweating buckets, I was panting like nobody's business, whatever, but I absolutely loved it. And that was it. And I just carried on through from there.
I think I mean, the one thing is you're a larger than life character, which is great, but it's the enthusiasm you had for it, exuded for it, and it absolutely became so engaging, and people would just, you talk about these things with enthusiasm, and then as you sort of developed and got fitter and better and stronger, and then it was great. And I think it's good having a character like Hess, like you, in that environment, because again, I think this harks back to what we were saying, is person A walks through the door, and it's great that you got somebody like Hess will go, hi, welcome, this is what we do, this is how it's done, and etc. And this was even before he became a coach. This was just naturally. So, that sort of thing. It's great. And I think it's people sort of, you get a good energy off of people like that, where, because you've that's your stuff, part of your story is it's a great thing you can say to somebody, I was you. I walked through that door, I was unfit, I wanted to do this, I had the opportunity, and now I did it. And Hess has fought on shows before, he's sparred with people, he's coached, he cornered, and developed people and boxers all the way along. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I remember that first day, we said, who's the big Brummie then? he's not from around here.
Yeah, I know the accent's still here. No, not at all.
Actually, one of the people that helped me settle in the gym massively when I first started, always said hello, always spoke to me, and actually, I from the background I came from, I was comfortable coming in the gym. It's another gym to me, but actually, the boxing environment, you were one of the people that actually made that a little bit of a smoother transition. Always spoke to me, always had a conversation and chat.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, Stu, because that's something I always try to make people feel, because it's got to be. I can imagine it's daunting coming into somewhere where especially if you don't know many people, and people are at different levels of boxing. Yeah. So if you've got someone that feels, makes you feel comfortable, and I get a lot on a Wednesday, on my Wednesday night class. I get a lot of new people coming along, and I'm like, so I've even changed Wednesdays. I don't do too much of the strength and conditioning stuff on a Wednesday, because I don't want to scare people away from coming and learning how to box. Because predominantly what we're looking to do is, yes, we want to get them to get fit, which you can get fit without doing too much, but getting them to learn the basics about the boxing.
Do you know, that's a really interesting point, because I think there is, it's interesting, from a coaching perspective, you try and set up sessions because you want people to keep coming back. Yeah. But you know fully well that boxing is bred around, if you improve, it's about repetition. And it can be very soul destroying if you're having to throw. I mean, do you remember, Dan, me and Dan used to train out, or Rob, you mentioned it, way back out of Core Fitness in Woodley. And we used to do something called the Jab Lab, where all we'd do is, the whole session was jabs. Just we'd do 100 jabs on the back, 100 jabs to the body, 100 jabs to the head. You'd do sparring, and you'd do 4 rounds of jab-only sparring, so it's all conditional sparring. It was horrendous, but it was on repeat. And sometimes, I still do these sessions for myself. When I go to the gym, I literally will try and throw 1,000 punches per. Now, it's not the most exciting session in the world, and it's not the most glamorous, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. Is sometimes you kind of have to adapt your sessions to make it engaging. People are excited, they're doing something different, but they're learning stuff still, but they're working hard and stuff. And it's interesting, Stuart, when you said you came into the gym and it has made you feel. I'm going to flip this around, because Stuart, I've known Stuart and through various people, and Stuart is a very successful PT instructor. His strength and conditioning knowledge is second to none. His nutrition knowledge has been fantastic. But the thing what I remember is seeing Stuart on the pads. So probably the best person, got to call you a pad master. There you go. It's like sounding like Star Wars, isn't it?
I'll get the T-shirt.
Pad master. But Stuart's padding is phenomenal. And I know you, Stuart, you've gone and coached out in America. You worked with Tony Jeffries for a while out there as well. And if you ever get the chance to see Stuart's pad work, certainly online. And when Stuart came in and started training with us, my instinct was, how am I going to teach him? Because he's understanding everything. His understanding and knowledge of things like range and power and rotations and technical stuff was brilliant. But it's interesting because we had private conversations, and Stuart's like, yeah, but my confidence level is not, from actually being the boxer, not the coach. And it's that sometimes it's very difficult to separate. And he went from being the coach to becoming a boxer and learning new things from the ground up, isn't it? And that was interesting, because I thought, how can we teach this man anything? But I think the journey along the way was great, and you mentored with Dan brilliantly. I think that's another thing, is you partnered up, and and that was such a. I mean, do you want to sort of give us a bit more sort of context?
Leading into that's probably perfect, because my someone from a boxing gym would probably look at my journey like it's a little bit backwards, because I did a long time ago put gloves on. I've always trained as part of, I had a football background, but I always used pad work, bad work, and let's say the circuit training of boxing to stay fit, stay in shape. But it was just you know, in a commercial gym.
Yeah.
And I remember watching, like, local fighters used to come in the same gym, and they were, you know, you had all the big lads very strong, and then you had these couple of lads that were just different, very fit, were able to do a lot of things that most people in the gym couldn't do. And I just found myself kind of analysing, I guess, my profession a little bit differently, and developing what I wanted to do. And it's having that kind of backwards introduction to boxing has meant that I've spent a lot of time with Olympic medalists, British champions, and been able to watch how they train and kind of have them as a contact to develop what I do, I guess.
Yeah.
And like you said, I came in from a coaching background, and for me, I'd rather see 10 people go through the process, fight, watch from a distance and pat them on the back, than me go through the process 10 times and fight and get the pat on the back. I guess that is just the way that I've developed how I work with people. Again, me and Alex Kamara have spoke to each other for the last 3 months every day.
Yeah.
Because I like the buzz that he's learning, he's understanding, been able to take him from A to B, not necessarily from a skill set, but the 10-15% that I can add to his journey for his thing has been rewarding for me.
I think as well, you kind of pushed yourself outside that comfort zone by actually training and fighting.
Yeah.
I think that's because, you know, it probably wasn't high on the agenda to begin with, but I think adding it gives you another perspective as a coach to be in and amongst it, and again, that was a journey, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really, really out of my comfort zone. Again, you see people get in comfortably every week and they'll fight. For me, it was an uncomfortable. It was an enjoyable journey, but it was an uncomfortable journey because it's just not. It's not what I've grown up doing. And
it was interesting because there was quite a lot of self-doubt, wasn't there, to begin with?
Yeah.
I think the physical elements of it weren't the issue. There's a lot of mental elements to it. And I think boxing is that. And again, harking back to people come through the door, we don't do boxercise, let's say, for instance. I don't want to be disparaging of that, because that's a very, very good avenue to keeping fit and so on. But what we tend to do is we say, right, you're going to come through the door, you're going to train like a professional boxer or as close to that as possible. So from the physical element, fine, you're prepared. The mental side of it is it's just another level, isn't it? To try and condition yourself mentally to be prepared.
And I think
I've
got a way of working which I know some people may not understand, or if you have worked with me, I did a bit with Rob and Alex, Mike and stuff like that, and Julian as well, and they've seen it's if someone wants a layer of information, they're going to get 10 from me. You're going to understand why I want to go a little bit deeper, and that is just the way that I want to put things across. I'm very passionate about what I do. Yeah. And I have had that label of, you take boxercise classes, or you do this and you do that. But actually, it is layered my journey. I've been able to work with, again, the people that I've worked with. Was able to work in all, did some work with Lululemon in London quite a lot, and it's all experience, and it has now filtered into a position that I feel like my knowledge is here to take a fighter from A to B in a format of strength and conditioning. Like you're saying, I think doing the journey of the fight, which was amazing, has taught me a lot of things that I can relate to from a mental
side. I think so.
With the fighters, I can understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So I have done a lot of cornering, and I can understand a lot more than maybe I did previous.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, your journey is coming into this sort of organisation as a coach rather than a fighter.
Yeah.
You came in actually learning some stuff from us, which is, and vice versa. Let's not beat around the bush here. We learn an awful lot from you, but it's great that you've kind of, in the environment that you're allowed to be able to sort of flourish and coach, and you do it with this, obviously with Scowes Lane Boxing Club.
Yeah.
With obviously we mentioned Tommy Johnson, who's a fantastic coach, but you got support from there, and it's you obviously we support you, and when you're, I mean, Stuart will sit there and watch how hands are wrapped, and then go away and practice that. I mean, it's detail is incredible, and then what we found in recently is, although Stuart's been supporting, like I say, one of our elite fighters, but then we're also actually now looking and focusing at the trying to give that same level of knowledge, isn't it, and that input to the likes of the people who've just been training for the first 6 months and want to develop, etc., etc. I think that's...
And I remember my entry to Old Man Boxing, I remember my first couple of sessions, but actually Dan used to train with me and take some boxing classes in my old gym. And I just remember him asking me to come, you've got to come on a Saturday, you've got to come on a Saturday. But the way he was telling me, it was like, you see a kid open their PlayStation at Christmas for the first time, and just like beam on his face. I was like, what's so special down there? What are they doing? So eventually, like, my work allowed me to get a bit more time to come down. And it was, again, like, I felt at home. I felt like this is everything that I've kind of been a part of before, like a glimpse, like very successful gyms in America. And I've said to you before, like, there's that there, there's that community, that society. It's just, everybody was just invited everybody in, whether it was sparring or whether it was training, there was always someone to chat to, or someone that was just as passionate about what you were trying to do as the next person.
It's like having an extended family, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, you obviously talked about the man to the left of you and Dan. So we've known each other a fair few years, Dan. Dan was one of the originators of Old Man Boxing. He's one of the people we just sat around and chatted and go, we're just old men boxing. Tell you what we'll do, let's brand this up and then and see where this goes. But Dan, you started, do you want to explain? It was, well, our sort of getting together was in Woodley, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So back on my old gym when I used to, when Stu was a coach there, so apart from years back when I used to do the kickboxing, Stu was sort of my first step back into working back and pad work and stuff like that. And he used to kill me out on the pads and stuff. So
not boxer size.
Not box size.
You've got that T-shirt, not boxer size.
But then I think one of my the lad Archie I used to train with, then obviously introduced me to you, got me down to Woodley, and then it was like no looking back from there.
Because you were training for and you again, the same as Di, you went into a ultra white collar, or no, something similar, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was a way into the journey. I think because I think our opening was biggest problem of working or training out of core was it was so far away from home, so it was a massive rush in the mornings, and then me and Dan, not this Dan, obviously, the Dan who owns the gym, once I helped him out setting up the gym when it was opening, and then there was the gateway of sort of setting a new home for Old Man Boxing, which, to be honest, he wasn't too keen on.
He wasn't, was he? No. So Dan initiated all of this. Without Dan, genuinely. He said, look, there's an opportunity here. I'll have a chat with Dan Eden, the owner of STMA. We could possibly do the morning sessions there. Brilliant. But Dan Eden, for people who don't know, is Muay Thai.
Yeah, kickboxing. Again, we kickboxed way back, like under Frank Bowen back in the 90s. That's when me and Dan, I've known Dan since we were kids, but that's where we trained together. But his passion is kickboxing, Muay Thai. So in his eyes, once he set up STMA, that's what it was. It was nothing else. It was kickboxing to start with, and a little persuasion that you won't even know we were there because we're there at 6 o'clock in the morning, sort of.
kind of an irony, isn't it? We couldn't even get a club set up initially. Any accommodation, we're getting pushed back a little bit from there, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was our opening in. So, like Hes said earlier, it was like a two-man band some Saturdays. Like, we've got 30 in there now. I remember nearly getting knocked out by Hess back in the day when Raw was just like beating each other up.
He can hit, can't he?
And he mastered the double jab backhand and I had to step on it.
That was your own fault, because you were the one who was telling me double jab backhand.
Yeah. I think I've actually still got that on video somewhere. It's just like we recorded it as well. But yeah, so that was my shout into On With You. Just a little chance meeting through someone again, like with Stu, selling the deal to Stu to get himself down there.
So you can punch me in the face.
Yeah, just to do that. Yeah, I'll show you what you're doing then. But yeah, and it's grew massively, isn't it? And obviously once we got in there, then I lost my sister through cancer. So again, like with Rob, there was an opportunity where I could raise some money. Okay, yeah. Had the tools to hand with you guys, so yeah. And then I think it was around that time we started. So it was pre-COVID. I was supposed to fight, so I'd done like Diane, done the 8-week training, and I think it was the week before the fight. I think on the Wednesday we were supposed to fight, and Saturday, Wednesday we locked down. So I went into lockdown super fit. And I think we'd done a few pad work sessions over the park.
You did, yeah. That's it. Yeah, we just went
over lockdown. I think. And then randomly we got the contract or such for the ultra white collar.
Yeah.
So I've done it again once we set back in after we come out of lockdown. So, and then with your guidance, got into the coaching side of it. And then back to back 25 fights in a night.
That was
so yeah. White collars. So
me and Dan worked it out because we used to do the cornering quite a lot. Of the ultra white fights, every fight, 25 fights back to back. We worked out. We'd worked out at some point. I think it was within 2 years we'd cornered over 500 rounds of boxing throughout everything.
As well,
yeah, so picked up a few horrible diseases along the way, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But Dan's and it's brilliant because. Dan, from like you said, from a boxing perspective, he came fairly raw but super fit. I think with Archie and you were super fit, super strong. Technically, there was things that were worked on, and it was great. And bless him, we sparred with Dan quite a bit, and there were some painful lessons learnt there.
Weekly black eyes he's kept from court back in the day.
It was good. But then he got to the point where his ability to learn. And I think this is an interesting. Your ability to actually learn. Same with you, Hess, as well. It is incredible. You mentioned it as well. You said, Di, that you think you have quite a good ability to learn things new and pick things up very quickly, which I sort of bear testimony to. But yeah, the interesting thing is with Dan, suddenly the learning bit went from there to there. So he picked up on certain things. He was being coached. And from my perspective, where you kind of are coaching someone, but you're sparring them, and it's very difficult to do that. I'm not a great lover of doing that, and I don't do that anymore. I couldn't go into it with that in sparring sessions going, all right, I think, Dan, because I invariably would learn stuff and I'd get smashed, and in the end I kind of backed away from it because I thought this is really, now it's time for me to coach, not trust too half-hearted. And your ability to learn stuff and pick things up right from the off is great. I think it's a testimony to a lot of coaches is you get results, progress. When people come through the door, and this is one of the things I wouldn't mind making a point of is I'm a great believer when you build confidence in people. The ideal thing is, from my perspective, somebody comes through that door and they go, I want to learn to box. Brilliant. We're gonna teach you how to box. The byproduct along the way is building up your confidence, because everyone says, oh yeah, you can build up your self-esteem and confidence. You can only ever do that if you actually improve. Just going there and either sweating and puffing and panting, not learning anything, or heaven forbid sparring and getting beaten up, it doesn't build confidence. It doesn't build self-esteem. It actually does the exact opposite. So from my perspective, it's right. Person A is coming in. We're gonna get you to a level where you're going to feel confident about yourself, your ability, your fitness, your endurance, stamina, whatever it is, and kind of do that in a in a progressive way. And my approach has always been, right, I'm going to tell you what you're going to learn. This is what you're going to learn. You're going to practice this, practice it. And then you're going to apply it. You're going to apply it in a situation. And then you're going to see the results and reflect. And if you see that you've improved and you suddenly go, yeah, what I've done there, you were right. You know, Hess was right when he told me how to do this. I've suddenly seen an improvement. Your confidence goes up. And it goes up and it goes up incrementally like that. And I think that's the approach we've had. And I think that's why it's helpful having that approach, because it means people keep coming back because they see results. And it's one thing, you know, from a PT perspective.
I think from a coaching point of view, yeah, I think there is that you work with people and you have these people that they just work really, 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 really hard. But you also have those people that take things on board, ask lots of questions, and like you say, go away and do things. So it's not just about, they're great to train because they train as hard as they can all the time. There's a lot of elements to it. And I know I still train with Dan.
Well, I was going to say, you work together as well, doing exactly that, don't you?
He asks questions, I ask questions, and we're kind of coaching each other. And it's that passion coming through, but also I know that he's, you know, very busy, but when we are together, he is asking those questions, and he does care about his development still. And I
think it's brilliant. Yeah. I think it's really good. I think it's just you're never too old to learn. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And if you don't mind, my background is slightly different to everyone else's. So I started as an amateur. Started as a pretty raw 13-year-old, I think. Went to Reading Boxing Club because I used to get in a lot of trouble with the police. And my dad, who was a boxer, was an army boxer, decided, look, you need discipline. You need to, you know, put that ego in check because you think you're the big I am. You're getting in trouble here, there and everywhere. Off you go. And off I went. Me and a couple of mates went to Reading Boxing Club up in Chatham Street. Dickie Owens was the coach at the time. Brutal man. Very good coach, though. But, and you go there, perception. Yeah, I'm a street kid. I'm a street fighter. I'm tough as nails. I'm used to, you know, brought up around the D Road estate. Wow, what can they teach me? And you come out as humble as ever. And that's not even throwing a punch. That's actually trying to do the fitness whilst holding your lunch in. Okay, trying to learn to skip in a toilet because you're embarrassed because you couldn't skip. Trying to run up and down Chatham Street car park without throwing up because you had to do that before you'd even get anywhere near the ring. And we mentioned this is sort of late 80s. Brutal environment in the amateur world. It's a very male orientated. It was very elitist. It was, you know, the coaches, if you're in the top 5 or 6 of these boxers, yeah, they've got all the time in the world for you, but you had to earn that right and you had to put in the work before. And there was no special dispensation for you. You know, if you turned up late, boot, you're out. You don't train. If you're a minute late, out you go. You do not train. If you stop, boot, out you go. You're not trying hard. So it's quite a brutal, harsh environment. And I always say to people now, I was a very below average boxer, really was. Genuinely speaking, people's aspirations going, I want to be this and this. Oh, I think I'm average. You wouldn't believe the levels that elite boxers are. And average is way, way down here. And I was way, way down there as well. I was sparring meat for a lot of the time, for a year. Couldn't really bring my weight down. I'd spar with people, get beat up all the time. Didn't really develop. And I'll hold my hands up. I didn't really commit as well because my ego, kid, you know, I got humbled and I wasn't really prepared to put that hard work in. But I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved to scrap, loved to fight, etc. And I went on a journey where I got a bit discouraged from that boxing club. I moved here, there, and everywhere. But it was the same environment. It's nowhere, you know, going away from Reading Boxing Club and going somewhere else. It doesn't. The scenario, you know, the culture doesn't change. It was always like that. It was just brutally hard. And the perception's always been it's a working class sport. I come from a working class family. It's hardship, people going through hardship to get to where they are, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, kind of did that. But get to a point where I didn't go any further than that. And now sort of move on 20, 30 years down the line and the environment's changed. It's not genuinely, you don't get in these people who want to box and come through our doors now are middle class people earning loads of money, etc., etc. It doesn't make them work any less hard than, you know, somebody who's from a working class background, etc. And I think, in my eyes, I've probably learned more in the last 10 years and developed my skill set in my last 10 years than I ever did when I was an amateur. Because there's people around me that have helped and supported me, given me advice, given me an environment to train in, that you didn't really get back in those days. Like I said, it was quite elitist and it was a scary environment. There's no holding back. There was, it was quite brutal. The language was quite incredible. You were told in no uncertain terms if you were good or not good, and there was no sort of argument for you. You had to toe the line. I think now it's different. The culture, environment, isn't it? The landscape's changed. Everything's changed a lot more now.
Yeah, society has changed in terms of how you got to manage people. Now you can't. You see, even some of them football managers who had that old style are not getting results out of people because you can't talk to people the same way nowadays.
No, I know.
You've got to have a little bit of, you've got to respect people a little bit more in the language you use with people.
I'm probably going to disagree slightly there on what you just said, because I've been visiting, obviously over the last 5 years, still been visiting ABA gyms and pro gyms with people that I know, and there still is that regimented, die-hard attitude in relation to boxing in those gyms.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah, at that level, yes,
And
definitely
I
older
think
than that level.
For me, the beauty of what you've built, and it's what you have built, is that advice and that support. Because I think for me, I think I only met you a couple of months. I think just from Old Man. I think obviously last year, obviously one of the preps for the fights. And I think I was sort of struggling where I'd sort of trial and error on diet. I said, have you got any tips for nutrition? And then the next day I got these PDFs flying through on WhatsApp, literally like 20 WhatsApps, and I'm like, Christ, geez. And then 2 days later, how are you getting on? Have you tried this? 2 days later, it's like almost a 2-week period of support.
Yeah.
Just from asking, about advice.
I think as well, but I think there is no, from my perspective in boxing, is why you can train with an intensity and with knowledge and support and all of that entire pack. You can train like a professional and be accommodating enough to make it a sort of very positive and very sort of productive environment without it having to be a bit oppressive, so to speak. I think that's one of the key things, and this is the professionalism that you can. And listen, I'm gonna put a few shout outs, because we know in the white collar game, there are sometimes you'll see fighters turn up and they've got a corner man who's in his jeans and an old ripped vest, and the gloves that they're wearing are something that's come out of Sports Direct with, and they're peeling at the corners and they last about 40 seconds in a fight and then they're falling over. And there's always been that bad. But there are some gyms there, fantastic gyms who are not England boxing gyms, but they are white collar gyms, the likes of the Spartan Gym, Coliseum Gym, South Morton, where we obviously, deal a lot with. And you can see the level of fitness and the people that they put, in for fights, sort of the level of fitness, conditioning, technique, and etc. And I think there's people, we like to sort of crow about what we offer people and help their pathway into boxing. There are gyms there that are doing this as well, and more gyms that are doing it and making those, creating those pathways for people, but still maintaining a high level of discipline, a high level of intensity in their training, and offering, we're in quite a nice, unique situation. We've got the likes and the knowledge of a lot of people in here that can provide that strength and conditioning support. And this is something we've obviously discussed, is fight packages for people. We have novice boxers coming in and want to have aspirations to fight on a show. We can now put together that entire package. So like Rob, you said, you inquired about it. We can provide that up front and say, look, here's your here's your diet plan, here's your strength and conditioning plan, this is what you're going to be working with this coach, that coach, another coach, this is your video analysis, we film sparring, this is equipment advice, all sorts of elements to it. And I think that's where now that culture's changed and it's shifted, and it's great because, listen, for one, I hate to say, I mean, you see the misfit boxing and the YouTuber boxing, the likes of Jake Paul's and this, that and the other. Now, that's probably for another podcast, I'd say, and another discussion. But there is that element where you're going, is it good for boxing? Is it bad for boxing? Does it raise the profile of boxing, or does it diminish the credibility of boxing? Like I say, people have various arguments, but we talked about getting more women into boxing because the benefits of it is great for physically, mentally, as you said, Di. But you look at the likes of Jake Paul. He's a massive promoter of female boxing. Enormous promoter of it. He puts shows on which are female-only shows.
Good fighters as well.
Good fighters, great standard, getting in great exposure. And I think there's an element of that which you go, I think he's, much as he's very, he's very Marmite. You can either love him or hate him to a certain degree. But as a business person, he's very astute, and he's given opportunities that normally women would not get in a boxing environment. And it's brilliant because that profile's raised, and it goes on and on and on like that. And I think what we need as our organisation, it's good that you get these stories of how you you've got to this state, and just encouraging people of all aspects and all elements. Go, we can get an elder generation. I mean, we've sort of the elder generation. There's a pathway if you want to just keep fit. The younger generation, there's a pathway if you want to develop skills and maybe fight on a white collar show, or coaches. This is a pathway to you being able to become a coach, or we've discussed it, Di, that pathway as well. And I think this is where we're at now. It's good that we have a sort of a lovely society which gives people opportunity to do that. And I think long may it sort of reign and just keep going. And we're discussing. We're affiliating, obviously Rob talked about a lot of charity work, and we're affiliating with that, raising money for charities. Yes, I know you do that as well. Yeah. But when we're affiliating with Sport in Mind, which we think was a very worthwhile sort of charity to be affiliated with as well, because a lot of the people who are coming through the doors are people who are struggling with their mental health and have, and mental welfare, not just physical things. And it's we're not going to name names, but we've got boxers who've come in with certainly with challenges in their life, and boxing's given them an opportunity that maybe they would never have got if our sort of environment and society and setup was never there. So I think that's encouraging. Like I say, we're speaking later today with a couple who's the gentleman's got early stages of Parkinson's and wants to start some coaching, start to be coached and trained to help with that. Brilliant. We Mental Health Awareness Week in May. We're doing sessions with Sport in Mind. So I think again it's opening up that avenue for anyone and everyone, because it's a phenomenal sport.
We've said, haven't we, as important as those people going out fighting at the top after the gym, or for what we're trying to do, we also want to open it up so a lot more people can be involved.
100%.
For a number of different reasons.
Yeah, I think so. Why not? I mean, and just enjoy every element and aspect and every facet of boxing, because it throws up some wonderful memories, some wonderful stories, some hard times, but invariably you're there because you enjoy it. It's just a great sport to be part of, and I absolutely adore it. It's addictive, but it's not. The sport's not addictive. I think the people are.
Yeah, I think it's you can't emphasise the support element of what happens in that gym, because you sort of look at where it's like anything, isn't it? If you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people. And you are who you sort of associate with. And when you look at that gym environment, I can remember last year sort of the dark days of sort of, 6:30 in the morning, thinking, I'm 58 years old. What on earth am I doing? You know, where literally everything hurts. You know, you ache. You know, you feel tired. You know, you drive to the gym. You know, and then it's like the light at the end of the tunnel, the glow of the gym, and you're like, yes, I'm being beckoned to the end. And then you get in the gym, and then suddenly the vibe of the gym and the vibrancy of everyone, like, you know, morning, blah, 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 and within 5 minutes, you know, you've got all these positive people around you, you know, and it's infectious.
Yeah.
And you're away, and then sort of, you know, and then something that really like freaked me out last year. I can remember some of you all sort of, I think you were obviously going through a bad period yourself, because some of those Saturday morning sessions were just, like, between you and Hess, I mean, it was like being back in week 6 of basic training. And I
was in a good mood, I thought.
I'm driving towards, I'm over the other side of the Reading, driving down the road, and there's this lunatic on a push bike, right, that's got like a hoodie on and headphones on and a helmet, wearing purple, there I had. And I'm looking, and I think, that looks like Diane. And she's like pedalling like a lunatic down the road. I'm thinking, you've just done 2 hours. And now, easy a mile and a half away from the gym, and now you're pedalling to wherever you're pedalling. And I'm just like, I nearly crashed the car because I was just like, couldn't believe it. And I was just thinking, God, and that's testament to her fitness levels, because I mean, I you know, come out of those sessions on a Saturday morning. I need a half hour to get yourself together, and you just think, you know, and the point I'm getting to is, you know, you can go in there and feel as you know, as unmotivated and tired, and yet within minutes you've got this vibe of sort of elite level boxers. You know, guys that are just, you know, novice boxers or not even there for the boxing, everyone supporting each other. Then suddenly you find yourself, you know, you're in your, you know, you've got Hess shouting his combinations, and then you coming up and sort of, you know, correcting footwork and telling you to deliver 50% more. And then you might have Stuart on the bag next to you that's sort of, you know, pumping away like a pneumatic drill on the bag, and suddenly you're thinking, actually, I'm not being left behind here. and if you're lifting your levels.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant, you know.
It's quite a competitive, positive sort of vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I think I mean, even Saturday, even yesterday when we were side by side on the bag, and it was just, come on, Dan, is there more we can do? And I'm gonna sort of start to tie things up a little bit here, but I think perception and reality, we talk about it a lot, in the perception of boxing against the reality of it, is vastly different. People who step through the door, unless you've had any understanding previously, the perception of what boxing is compared to the actual reality. And this is the reality compared to how hard you must train, how, you know, often you must train, what it involves, you know, the commitment it involves, etc. There's that element. But perception against reality as well, in terms of people's perception is, oh God, it's a scary, brutal, violent environment that I don't want to be a part of. And the reality is actually it is, but it's a very encouraging, very positive environment. It's just a sport. You know, it's kind of a lifestyle, but it's not that very dark, brutal sort of area. And I think sometimes we get people through the door who just can't handle it because it is hard work, and they don't understand that this is the way it is. But this is why we do it, because when you come out of that dark time, when you suddenly realise, oh my God, I swear to God, I can see my lungs on the outside of my body, and everything's gone a bit fuzzy in my head, but when the dust settles and you suddenly realise, you know, I'm achieving stuff and I'm progressing, and this is a great feeling. And that's the people who suddenly keep coming back more and more. And that's the people who start investing in themselves, with their diet plan, changing their lifestyle. We've seen that with obviously certain people who've changed their lifestyle for the better, and also investing in equipment, buying, you know, boxing gloves and boots, because
boxing's taken over my whole house.
Yeah, taking over my wardrobe. But it is, isn't it? You suddenly go, well, we won't go on about the equipment, shall we? Yes, because you know, we don't want journalists seeing this, but you do. You suddenly go, I'm quite happy spending £150 on a pair of gloves, and then maybe another 100 because this is. And you could be, we've got the likes of some guys in there who are willing to spend this money on equipment, who are never going to get in the ring because that's not their ambition, their objective. But they are loving to develop, to progress, to be better.
It's also good to see people like that, like we say about characters in the gym and stuff, and that's what I believe makes this gym, because the characters in there. From seeing it from the two-man bands on the Saturday to the characters we're picking up as we're going through the years, and the people that slot into places like Stu and like Hess has come along and stepped up in the coaching, and Diane's stepping up for the women in there. The gym's so different to most places. We've had pro boxers next to like people like Matt, who doesn't want to fight. He's just there for the training, but you've got a pro boxer there who actually that's his job, but he's still coming to our gym and doing that. So it doesn't matter who you are, what size you are, how fit you are, as long as you're willing to give it to your all on the bag next to us. And
before Graham ties things up, one like real quick point is we do have this hub, but like Graham has listed off, Danny Humphrey's gym and some others, they are everywhere. So if you are seeing this, hearing this, and you're like, oh, that's great, but I'm X amount of miles away, you've listed off some bad experiences, but there are a lot of places similar to this, boxing gyms, your local boxing gym, and I think go and try it or take someone down, because these places do exist and they can really, really help. There is, like I say, you listed some good gyms there. They are about.
I think it is, and it's white collar's always had a bad rap in the past, because white collar, when it's referred to as unlicensed boxing, all of a sudden what instantly comes to mind to the uninitiated is hay bales and bare knuckles, is it? I see.
And headbutts and elbows and all sorts, and it's not that at all, is it?
Again, there's people not understanding it, because most people think white collar, what's that mean? What you have to wear white collar, it's a sit down meal, and that is a lot of people's perception. People don't understand that you can walk into a gym like this and it's not got blood smeared up the walls, and people are not like growling at each other. There's accountants, there's plumbers, there's like ex-military, there's everyone in there, but we're all doing our little bit in there. It doesn't matter what you're there, what's in your head or whatever, we're all fit into our little places, and it's not as scary as actually people think it.
I think as well, and I think you've got the nail on the head, is what you've got is you've got people coming, as we'll go full circle now, but you've got people that have come from different backgrounds, different histories, different pathways into it. But eventually what you end up doing is you all sort of migrate to the same direction in boxing. You have different objectives and targets, granted, but essentially what you're doing is you're all working towards that kind of singular goal of I want to develop, I want to learn, and I want to progress. And those things are just the foundation to everything. And you could go progress and develop at a higher, quicker level than someone else, and then you might want to implement that skill set in a different environment. But essentially, we all kind of migrate. Even myself as a coach, and still training, still migrating to there. I don't have any aspirations to fight ever again. I think that ship sailed. But I'd like to train with the likes of people who are fighting at their level, because that's, for me, is a great. It's just it's a great environment to be in. It's a good sort of how can I put it? It's a good principle to operate by, and I think that's been the encouraging thing from you guys. Is, like I say, everyone has a different story. Everyone has a lot of challenges, different obstacles. You've to overcome: mental, physical, environmental, cultural, a lot. And I think what the pleasing thing is, it's great now that there is this environment that you can develop and flourish and really progress, and other environments like it as well, elsewhere and out there, which is a great thing. It's really good. I'm going to tie this up, because I think we've got to know each other a bit better, and with these conversations, and it's great. It's some fantastic stuff. So I'm going to say thank you, Di, thank you, Dan, thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Hess.
Thank you.
We will be having...
Thank you, Graham.
It's great. Good. More podcasts to come. So we are going to be discussing some further things. So we'll be watch this space, and there'll be some new faces potentially and some same faces to discuss it. But it's been really good. Well done, gang. Thank you for your time. And